time, I'm going to introduce David Fisher. So he is the district conservationist for NRCS out there in Apache County. And I'm going to let you take it away, David. I'm going to stop sharing and let you talk about Farm Bill updates and any other things you would like to do. David? I'm going to unmute you. David?
Are you there now?
All right, David, we can hear you. Do you want to share your screen?
I'm working on that, yes.
We can see it. That's great. Oh, hold on. Yep, there we go. That's our agenda.
Right. So
But
anyway,
it's on there.
I just want to talk briefly about how we're operating during this COVID guidelines. So our office is open, but we're not accepting visitors. We're taking phone appointments. So if you want to apply, as Sharma talked about the CSP program, you'll have to give the office a call, and then the phones are forwarded to our cell phones to where we can address those questions. So we're doing all of our work remotely right now. And I'm just going to go briefly over our other programs we have available. I just pulled up some fact sheets on each program, and I'll kind of show those and talk a little bit about each program. And then if you have additional questions, I can try to address those, or if Sharma will be kind enough to send out my contact information with her follow-up survey, you can contact me that way via email.
I will send it out, David.
Okay, thank you. So kind of our most popular program we have in, can you still see am I still sharing the screen? Do you see the EQIP Environmental Quality Incentives Program?
David, I'm looking at the agenda. I can see the agenda.
No, I thought I switched it. I'll have to.
You know what? I could do a stop sharing and you could try to share again. Sometimes there's a little quirk with the Zoom. Here, I'm going to stop your sharing. Okay, now try to share again. There we go. We can see EQIP.
Okay, so that's the fact sheet. All this information is on our website, but this is the fact sheet from our website about the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. This has kind of been the most popular program in Arizona over the last several years. We work one-on-one with our cooperators, ranchers and farmers, on conserving their natural resources, whether it's irrigation water, and the grazing land resources is kind of the most popular ones in this part of the state. So the eligible people are the farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners who own or rent agricultural land, and it can be used on all types of agricultural operations. And basically we do a conservation plan with a cooperator. He identifies his resource concerns. We point out resource concerns that we see out there, and we work together with the cooperator to develop a conservation plan. And then from the conservation plan, we look to the EQIP program for financial assistance to implement our conservation practices. So that's kind of in a nutshell on the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. The second program we have is called the RCPP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. And this one is kind of a partnership program where NRCS partners with other entities to address conservation issues. RCPP, in Arizona, the Game and Fish Department has taken advantage of it across the state and has had several areas where they've applied this program. The local conservation district here also had an RCPP program for a couple of years. They applied again this year for assistance, and they did not get accepted to it this year. It's turned out pretty popular. There's a lot of competition across the state. So the partners apply for the awards. We have a sign-up period, and they submit their proposal, and it's reviewed by NRCS. Then the national office kind of reviews those and ranks them across the nation. So eligibility, it talks about organizations. So pretty much any organization or can apply for this, local units of government and conservation districts. Going back to EQIP, it's kind of a new thing in the Farm Bill. Is we have opportunities for natural disaster assistance recovery after a natural disaster through the EQIP program to help reduce erosion and other resource concerns that may be a result of a natural disaster, such as a fire and the subsequent flooding that comes afterwards. Haven't really done this one in our area. That's kind of a new aspect to the EQIP program, but it's certainly available if we should happen to have some type of natural disaster in this area. I just want to show you, I have a fact sheet also for the Conservation Stewardship Program that Sharma covered pretty well. So I'll move on to that. We have another program, Agricultural Conservation Easements. And this one, if there's a landowner that wants to protect his land from development, keeping an agricultural production or a wetland type thing, he can partner with a entity that specializes in easements, and they can work together through NRCS. NRCS provides part of the funding, and the easement organization actually holds the easement. It takes a while to get those done, but these are eligible for American Indian tribes, state and local governments, and non-government organizations. Primary purpose is to protect working agricultural lands and limit non-agricultural uses of the land. So essentially, the landowner is selling off his development rights under an easement to keep the land in ag production. Another one we have is probably not a lot of potential in Arizona, is the Healthy Forest Reserves Healthy Forest Reserve Program. It's a program to restore forested land on private lands. And here in Arizona, most of our forested land is administered by the U.S. Forest Service. So there's not a lot of opportunity here, although there may be some tracts of land where this program would be eligible. And the main caveat of this is to enhance or increase the recovery of threatened and endangered species, improve the biological diversity of the area, or increase carbon sequestration. So if we have any private timbered areas, this may be a possibility under this program here. Another one we have is Conservation Innovative Grants. NRCS, we rely on a whole suite of conservation practices to address resource concerns that have been kind of tried and true. And a lot of times there might be a new way with technology changes and stuff, a new way to do it. And we just don't have the practices or the knowledge to do it in that manner. So if a landowner or other group has an innovative way of conserving resources on their agricultural production ground, they could apply for this Conservation Innovative Grant to kind of implement their idea and kind of test it out to see how well it works. So this grant is eligible for state and local governments, Indian tribes, non-government organizations, and individuals across the whole 50 states. And I should say, for all these programs that I've talked about, there's always a sign-up period and a deadline to take applicants up to that point. And so it's kind of inquire and sign up at any time. And then when we get to that sign-up deadline, we'll take the applicants we have on hand up to that point. So we have a whole program on the innovative grants also. Universities tend to use this program here a lot. And this kind of goes back to our natural disaster recovery assistance. We have what we call the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. And this program requires a local government sponsor. So it's been used across the state periodically, quite frequently actually. Usually the county is the sponsor. After the Wallow fire, Apache County was the sponsor, and we did some work to mitigate flood effects after the Wallow fire. And so once you have your sponsor, the sponsor is responsible to provide access to implement the repair work, to get the permission of the landowner to do the work. They do all this necessary permits. And they also pay for half the cost, either through in-kind services or cash for the remediation efforts. And they're responsible to make sure the work gets installed. And they're responsible for any maintenance that's required after the work is installed. So as I mentioned before, we did a lot of work after the Wallow fire up around Alpine and Nutrio. So, and at least for this area is where we use that program the most. But it seems like there's always some, across the state, there's always some kind of a natural disaster, a flood or a fire where this program could possibly be used. And the sponsor, the local unit of government, they work with the individual landowners to mitigate the effects of natural disaster. Another one of our programs, we call it Conservation Technical Assistance, another acronym, CTA. Sometimes landowners they have a resource concern out there and they just want some technical assistance on how to address that resource concern, whether it's flooding or excessive use of irrigation water. And we can go out with that landowner and assess his concerns and provide alternatives for him to address those concerns. If he wants to address those on his own. A lot of times we do this CTA, assess these resource concerns, and then after we kind of develop a plan, we'll move forward to our other programs and see where this person's problems might fit for some financial assistance also. A lot of times CTA assistance turns into the environmental quality incentives program assistance. And there's on our website, there's about a 20-page book that kind of talks about what kind of assistance we provide under this conservation technical assistance and planning. I don't know how fast this is refreshing for you guys, but the book kind of gives a good overview of our conservation planning strategy. And then there's several other things that kind of fall under our landscape planning. Usually it's a local unit of government. A lot of our watershed programs fall under this. We talked about the emergency watershed program. And there's also the watershed and flood prevention operations program, which is kind of partnered with state and local governments for planning and installing watershed projects. Watershed rehabilitation program. Down south, there's a lot of flood control dams that were constructed in the 60s and 70s to reduce flooding to communities. And so this program now is going back to looking at those dams and making sure that we're up to our new standards and stuff like that. Watershed surveys and planning. We can cooperate with federal, state, and local agencies to protect watersheds from damage caused by erosion, flood water, sediment, and to conserve and develop water and land resources. So that's a lot. That's just kind of, I went through all of our programs rather quickly. Some of them fit for our use here in Arizona really well, others not so well. But there is a lot of opportunity that our agency offers through various programs. And if any of you or local government entities or nonprofits or whatever, non-government units have an interest in any of these programs, I'd be happy to provide more information. So I guess I'll open it up for any questions.
Any questions for David? Just feel free to unmute yourself at the bottom of the screen.